Welcome to the Breakthrough Success Podcast, helping you achieve that breakthrough you've always been looking for in your business. And now your host, Mark Guberti.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Mark Guberti, and this is the podcast for marketers and small business owners who are looking for the breakthrough for their businesses. I am very excited about this show. We are going to talk about tapping into the Zen zone with our guest, Gary Szenderski. Gary is an author, speaker, teacher, and branding specialist. He specializes in helping people and organizations to navigate change and frequently speaks and writes on the topic of emerging brands, personal branding, and companies in transition. Gary is an award-winning writer, author of the Book of Szen, often quoted marketing expert, and recipient of the Distinguished Instructor Award from the University of California in Irvine, where he teaches branding. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Gary to the show.
Hey, Mark, how you doing? Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction.
It's a pleasure to have you on the Breakthrough Success Podcast, and we're definitely going to dive deep into some of the insights you share within your book. But first, I'd like to ask a why question. So for you, why did you write Zen Zone?
Well, it started out as something really different. It was really a weekly email to my team and then my clients for an advertising agency that I owned some years ago. And they liked it and started sending it out. And so I got into the habit of writing one a week. And literally, I got so many stories after the years that I put them into a book, or I compiled them into a book. There was not one specific catalytic moment in time, but I found that in my business, I've dealt with change so much that people have it on their mind a lot, and often they're afraid of it, so I thought I'd write the book.
So some of these upcoming questions, I have to give the Breakthrough Success listeners some insight beforehand, but I love the pun that you use in your book. So snippets, those are zenipits in Gary's book. So when you hear me say zenipits, it's because that's how he refers to his insights. So one of the zenipits, I hope I got that right, you mentioned in your book is that we must discover what we want in life. And I feel not everyone truly knows what they want. And I'm wondering, what advice can you offer for how we can discover what we want in our lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it challenges people all the time. I'm really amazed that people don't have a good idea of what they want. And of course, if you don't know what you want, you can't get what you want. So I recommend, first of all, just try to get out of the bind you've been put into by society and as you've grown up on other things that you think you can do, you're supposed to do, and try to think outside of that and just imagine yourself doing something really spectacular that makes you feel good. And it doesn't have to be anything that you think you have to learn, or it could just be anything. And start with that and move toward it. If you want to be a clown in a circus, get online and look where the circuses are. And you never know, when you start to move towards that piece that you think you want to bring some fulfillment to your life, it tends to move towards you. So, but you got to have the idea first. And if you don't know, you'll never get there.
I really love the idea of having that idea in place, because without a direction of where you want to go, like obviously direction changes as we continue, but having that initial direction just helps us be more confident about our journey. And one thing I learned, it's something that you know already, but you constantly have to relearn in your book, is that our journeys are filled with many different moments. And I feel like a lot of us take moments for granted. It's something that you talk about a lot in your book. And I'm wondering, how do we avoid taking moments for granted?
Oh boy, you're asking good questions here, Mark. I think, just by example, anecdotally, we tend to go into a zone. We get rote in how we think and do. We get into a routine, and we're really not thinking about what's happening in the moment, and we're somewhere else. And so lots of good things could be happening. So I have this little thing that I use, and it's every morning when I wake up, I think of what wonderful thing is going to happen to me today, and then I spend the rest of the day looking for it to happen. And what you get by that is you're constantly aware. you become aware. You don't know who's going to do something or say something, or you're going to see something. It just helps up-level your awareness. And that's how you really get a chance to live life, I think, more of it anyway, because if you're in the moment, you're really in the only thing that matters.
I really love the idea of being in a moment, and I'm really happy that you emphasize that in different parts of your book, because I feel like we could typically forget the moment and take our lives for granted. And another snippet that you mentioned is that we should always begin our songs on a positive note. And I love that, because I truly feel that the way you start your day is typically going to be the way that you finish. So how can we start each day feeling positive and having that feeling of positivity last throughout the day?
Well, it's different for everybody, because I know that we all have different things we have to do when we get up. But I would find something in your normal routine that you do, like shaving or something like that, and do it. Switch it up. Just switch it up. Go shave with your other hand or something like that. Do something that breaks up what would be a normal routine, and know that you're just teaching yourself that this is a way to remember. Remember the old strings we used to tie around our fingers to remember things? Well, this is something that'll jog you to say that you can take a positive view of life. Just something that reminds you that if you're on the plus side of life, you're going to have a lot more friends, and you're going to be a lot happier.
Thank you for sharing us those insights on how we can continue to exuberate positivity throughout our day. And I feel like part of the problem that decreases our positivity is we set goals, which are great. We expect ourselves to achieve certain results. That's the nature of the goal setting. But when our expectations don't come to pass, it could usually have a detrimental effect on how we view ourselves, how we view what we're doing. So how can we avoid letting our expectations and their accomplishment or lack of accomplishment impact how we feel about ourselves and what we do?
Yeah, I think expectations unmet are a big source of stress for people. I know it is for me, and we've all been in situations where you just really think, well, that contract's going to come in, or that girl's going to call me back, or whatever it is, and it doesn't happen. And sometimes we hold on to these things so desperately that it's like there can only be one outcome. And as we were just talking about, when you're in the moment, there's multiple outcomes. There's all kinds of things that can happen. And so by letting go and being present, you let those expectations, which originally began as a dream or maybe a goal, actually give them a chance to come together. What happens, I think, is we try to control. We say we want something, then we try to control the outcome to an exact way. Well, it's like saying, okay, I want a certain kind of Ferrari with a certain kind of engine, and I won't be happy if I get another Ferrari. Well, I think that would be crazy, because I'd be happy with any kind of Ferrari you want to give me. So I think we sometimes get too specific, too particular, and we paint such a robust, vivid picture in our minds that when it doesn't happen, we lose it. Whereas if you just kind of wish for a feeling to happen, I want to feel really good about this decision, then the decision or whatever that goal is can come back to you in maybe its own way and very likely a better way.
I really love that idea of, like, visualization is definitely something very important, but if you over visualize the expectation, then as you mentioned before, you could have the Ferrari in like the different color with the different engine and then not be pleased with it. So you definitely want to look at the big picture instead of tiny things that may not be 100% perfect, but they give you what you wanted overall. I really liked that insight that you provided. And while expectation, like missing expectations can definitely cause a lot of stress and make us feel bad about ourselves, I feel like when the work piles up, that can also cause a lot of stress, make us feel bad because we have just all this work that we have to do, but we haven't done it yet. So what should we do when the work just seems to pile up?
Oh, well, you're talking to somebody that is in that very situation. And I just picked up a new client that is, got a zillion things going on, and they have a lot of needs, and I'm here to help them. But sometimes they just throw at you, like there's so much. And I started just taking lists and just trying to keep up with the things that have to get done. I wasn't getting anything done. So I stopped that. And one of the things that helps me is I turn off all incoming distractions, no phone, no emails. And I just think about the work that I have to do. And usually, if you're not distracted by something, a ping every 5 seconds on an email or something like that, you'll actually calm down and learn the focus, and you'll be able to kind of set up little piles of stuff and get them organized. And it's kind of a cleansing, kind of a spiritual thing too, because you realize you have so much control. It's what the stress comes when you think you're not in control, but really we have a lot of control because everything that happens to us is always the caveat for that is how we choose to look at it. And oftentimes we're so reacting we don't have a chance to think. So turn off all the noise and focus on what you have to do, and you'll find, I think, you get a little more power.
I really love that idea of focusing on what we have to do instead of getting distracted by pings and notifications that while we'd like to check our email, it's not necessarily helping us to embrace the work that we need to embrace. And that's definitely going to help you when you have that big pile of work as you've experienced. But another thing that I feel holds a lot of people back, you also talk about this in your book, is letting go of the past. And sometimes past experiences, they can have a profound and negative impact on some people, depending on what that experience is. So how can we let go of past experiences that cause pain?
It depends on the event. Oftentimes we mourn the passing of a loved one and we never really forget. So I think when you lose something, which is usually something in the past is about loss, you were defeated or there's something that bad happened. I think, you gotta think of like what was your disposition, what your disposition would have been had that not happened, and also go back in time and rethink it and actually deal with it head on, and say, okay, now I'm watching it from maybe a better vantage point because I've got some time behind me, and put it into focus and say, hey, you know what? It was just a blip on the screen. It doesn't change a thing about who I am today, and who I am, I like. And I think sometimes just by dealing with it head on can really help the case.
I really love that idea of going head on with the experiences that we just have to let go, because if you push it off again and again and again, the more you push it off, it's just going to continue to grow inside of you, and you just have to embrace it head on in order to conquer it. And that definitely, not letting go will definitely hold back your ability to be happy. And on the same thought of happiness, in one of your Zen bits, you state that if there's not enough happiness in your life, it could be because you've closed the intake valve in which you embrace that happiness. So can you describe how we would open that intake valve to become happier?
Yeah, I think you got to start by describing why we close it off to begin with. And it all goes back to the same kind of theme we've been having here in the conversation this morning, is that, when you're so busy and stressed doing something, you don't see what's going on in the moment. And so you close it off because you want to focus. And I understand that. But to open it up to happiness is to actually reach out. But by reaching out and getting to talk to someone, giving them a smile, sharing something about your life that they might not have heard or know, and getting engaged, that's a good way to start to bring happiness in. Because the easiest thing in the world to do to make someone happy is to smile. And science has proven that a smile is contagious. And it's the best thing I know of to kind of unlock me from a funk I might be in.
I love it how some of the simplest things, like having a smile, can make you happier, make other people happier. And when you make other people happier, that's contagious also. And they're just going to make you even happier. So I really love that little hack for us that we can use to boost our happiness. And you offer a lot of great hacks throughout your book, The Zen Zone. And I'm wondering, when you were writing the book, what was one of the big challenges you faced during that journey to go from idea to published book?
Well, I think the biggest problem with doing anything creative is if you think you're creative, and I happen to think I am, I think we all are, is that people aren't going to like it. There's a fear of failure, and sometimes you just want to do it because it's a picture of you. And I can tell you, if you've got a story in you or a book or some kind, and you're thinking about it, do it. Go find a way to do it, because it'll pay off in zillions of different ways. I'm getting to meet somebody like you, Mark, that I wouldn't have known any other way except for this book. And who knows who's going to read one of those snippets, and it's going to bring a smile to their face and maybe change their life. I mean, I'm kind of on a tangent, but the biggest response I get from people that read it is that you must have been thinking about my life today because you hit it dead on. And that's a common response, and it just feels really good. So the struggle to write is maybe the time it takes, but the joy of it being completed, keep your focus on the end, and it is a joy. In fact, I've got 2 books. I'm going to try to get another one out of here pretty soon. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but again, once you get there, man, it just feels really good.
I definitely agree, because you get to see how your book changes lives and create that impact. And I feel like we all strive to create a level of impact on other people's lives, no matter how few or how many people we touch and to what extent we impact them. But I feel like we all want to create that impact. So thank you for sharing your whole journey with writing the book and some of the challenges that you faced, and shifting from challenges to lessons. What is the best lesson you have learned on your journey?
Oh, man. Tough. This is a tough crowd here today. I have a couple of things, but I'll go to one because it's something that maybe a lot of your listeners have gone through, and that's when you go through divorce and you realize that what you thought was a perfect love and all these things that were in your heart that you committed to is not going to be there anymore. You get angry, and I was trying to be as positive as I could be when we were going through it. And at the time, my two boys were pretty young, maybe 4 and 3 or 4 and 5, and I realized I was impacting my anger at their mother was impacting our relationship. And at one point, I turned around and I realized that the best thing I can do for my kids is to love their mom. And I shifted. I just said, we're going to be a family. We'll bring in the boyfriend too. They're now married, and we still are. We're a collective. Once you realize that you can't change it, you might as well embrace it, especially if love's included and you've got children's lives. So that was a huge lesson for me. That one is that I didn't die. I didn't shoot myself. I survived it. But I also learned a big lesson in that love can conquer a lot of things. And I'm still a firm believer in that.
I really love that message. That was a great lesson that you share with us. And another thing that I want to know is one thing I'd like to ask people, given the bookworm that I am, is I just read your book, The Zen Zone. I really enjoyed it. And I'm wondering if there are 3 great books you can think of right now that would be a great impact for a breakthrough success list.
For breakthrough success, I've got 2 books that come to mind right away. One is called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Anker. He's a Harvard professor. And the other one is Start With Why by Simon Sinek, who is a marketing consultant, and he's now a pretty famous author. The first one, Happiness Advantage, talks about real research to help you get a handle on teamwork, team building, organizations, how to see the brighter side of things, and also an acknowledgement that happiness is something that anybody can have, and they can actually help create it for themselves. And Start With Why, Simon Sinek talks about people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. He's got a great TED Talk. Look him up, Sinec. You'll see what I mean. And then the last book, which is kind of an outlier, is Beauty, the Invisible Embrace by a guy named John O'Donohue. And this book is just the most beautifully written, eloquent picture of life and beauty and all the things that can make it happen, from understanding colors to understanding our own spirituality. John really does a great job of letting us see the beauty that's all around us, and I highly recommend it. In fact, when I listen to his CDs on tape, I think I am just the biggest hack of all times. This guy is so eloquent. So those are the 3 books. I hope if you pick them up, you won't be disappointed.
Gary, thank you for sharing those 3 great book recommendations with Breakthrough Success listeners. I've asked you a lot of different questions at this point. We are approaching the end, but before I give you a plug to basically share where people can find you, what is one question that we need to be asking ourselves more often?
Oh, right. I think the one thing is, what do I have to do to become a better version of myself? And that's my mantra, like every day. It's like, what can I do today that it's going to make me a better person? And there's always something, sometimes, just paying attention, like, opening the door for somebody, doing little good deeds. But a lot of times it's more profound. It's asking ourselves, like, what trait or quality would I like to have? I like this guy over there or that guy over there. What do they do that I think I can be inspired by? And try. It's amazing how much you can add on to your repertoire and become the complete person you really want to be.
Gary, thank you for sharing that great question that we need to be asking ourselves every single day. Just how exactly are we able to get better than we were the day before? So I totally love your question. And right now I'm going to give you that plug I mentioned earlier. So where can Breakthrough Success listeners find you on the web?
You can go to the Zen Zone. That's SZENZONE.com, and you'll see information about my books. If you Google my name, a whole bunch of stuff will come up because I have a business called Zen Marketing. I also have another book called Book of Szen. And if you want to reach me directly, you can email me at Gary@bookofzen, that's SZEN.com. And I'll be happy to, and I always respond.
Gary, thank you for taking the time to share all of your awesome insights with us today. It was a pleasure to have you on the Breakthrough Success podcast.
The pleasure was all mine, Mark. Thank you very much.
To never miss an episode, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on whatever player you are using. If you are a regular listener and haven't done so already, I would greatly appreciate it if you could give this podcast a review or a rating. 2 ways you could do this are through markgabberty.com/iTunes or markgabberty.com/Stitcher. That ends this episode. Don't forget, dream big, achieve greatness, and unlock your potential today. How does over 100 retweets per day sound to you? My free ebook, 27 Ways to Get More Retweets on Twitter, has you covered. I use the methods within this ebook to get over 10,000 retweets every single quarter. To learn more and get access to this free resource, visit markgabberty.com/retweets.
This podcast is a production done by Mark Gabberty. For more insights, head on over to markgabberty.com.